It's unbreakable, gotta learn to let it go.
Welcome to Wake the F Up podcast, where we talk about living consciously and helping people uncover their essential selves so that they can stop sleepwalking through life. We are here today excited to share our birth story. We had our baby girl just a few months ago and have been on a beautiful maternity leave. It has been full of amazing highs, some grief that we always carry inside of ourselves. David, what do you feel like when you look back on the birth story now that we've settled into life a little bit? The highest high for you?
Probably just when you got pregnant. As far as the pregnancy goes.
It was really an amazing find because I was so convinced that we would not be able to get pregnant. Funny how anxiety can really be the destroyer of joy and maybe even safety if you think about it. And so we decided to get pregnant. I had an IUD. So it was a very conscious decision. Full transparency, we really thought it through before we removed the IUD. Prior to that, for 6 months, I had worked with a nutritionist. Yeah, I was OCD. I wanted this to be as healthy or as perfect of a container as I could be for our baby. Okay. Needless to say, when we got a positive pregnancy test a month later, I think we were both excited, elated, and shocked.
I was happy.
Yeah. We found out we were pregnant. I guess that was January, right? Mm-hmm. January. Fast forward, we had, as most of you already know, some scares. We had a subchorionic bleed, which we thought we were going to lose the pregnancy early. Then things all went normal for a long time. And then about 18 weeks, we found out that I had vasoprevia. Then I was put on bed rest, which just basically means don't do anything. It turned out that I had placenta previa first, then vasoprevia second. And then we did an ablation at week 32. So that was an intrauterine surgery. I don't think I came back on camera after that. So we never really talked about that. That was a real scare. So I did an in uterine operation on a table with a lot of doctors in the room, and it was really scary. Our little peanut, Genevieve, June, Long is her name, and she is a ray of light. She came into this world via C-section because she was breech. It's been such a ride. Why don't you talk about the morning of the C-section? Are you crying?
No, not crying.
It's okay. There's sure to be tears when you talk about a birth story.
It was exciting. I was scared as well, but I knew you'd be okay. And
you had a lot of experience with C-section because Betsy had 3, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's typically a very routine thing.
Yeah.
So I was expecting just a normal 30-minute C-section. And
when you have a story in your head, how you can be disappointed sort of in your body. And I have to be honest and say that I had some disappointment in my body that so many weird things were happening. And I really wanted this pregnancy so bad. I mean, Genevieve might be one of the most conscious decisions I've ever made in my life, truthfully. But I will say that it was interesting. I'm backing us up from the delivery room. There we are hugging, kissing, crying, and saying, we're going to have another baby. And we get wheeled off. But if I back up, the anxiety that I felt about the ability to perform or have my body do what it's always done for you and what it did with, Carl and I, there was some pressure there, if I'm honest, as a second wife. 11 years later plus, we're getting pregnant. Both of us are much older. And we really wanted this. And so in the beginning, when I was doing the ovulation kits, I was panicking. What if I didn't get pregnant? What if I couldn't get pregnant anymore? I'm 42 years old. I hadn't had a period because of the Mirena in so long that that's an interesting thought too. I didn't even know what my capabilities were. And I had, as everyone knows, if you've ever been listening, I shut the door on being able to get pregnant or have any more children when Carl got diagnosed, and we went into max radiation, and he was unable to have children anymore after that immediately. And I was 30, I can't remember, I think 30 or 32 years old, really young. Not even connecting my body to that possibility really until you and I got engaged. I remember I was thinking like, oh my God, we can have another baby. And we kind of joked about it, getting pregnant on our wedding night. And so my anxiety was so high, and I wanted to hurry up and get pregnant. And, in that, I never even considered what our doctor had said, which we should wait 90 days.
I really wasn't that worried about it. I wouldn't worry about the pre at all. But I had a lot of denial about the diagnoses.
You did?
Mm-hmm. I just couldn't believe. Well, I think it's just, it was a continued false sense of control, or false pretense of control.
Yeah.
And a lot of detachment of these things don't happen to me type thing.
Because you're a doctor?
Yeah, just because you're aware. I think that's a natural thing. Is you're aware of so many bad diagnoses that you kind of protect yourself by thinking that happens to other people, but not to me.
Yeah, that's been a theme for you, huh?
Yeah, I struggled with that with when Betsy died. I continually thought, this doesn't happen to me.
Yeah.
This is what happens to patients, not to me. And I had the same kind of just surprise or disbelief that we could have so many diagnoses. Rare.
We did.
Really rare diagnoses.
Beza previa is 1 in what was it? 1 in 1,000?
No, more than
1
that.
in 10,000?
It was a lot. It was
crazy.
It's very rare. And then she also had placenta accreta, which is where the placenta grows into the uterus, which is also relatively rare. And
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe that, and I don't know why. There's no reason that any of that stuff shouldn't happen to us, or wouldn't. I mean, we're just normal people. But for some reason, I just couldn't believe it.
Do you think that you couldn't believe it? It sounds kind of dreamy. Do you think that you couldn't believe it because our love is so powerful, and that we've already been through so much loss?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Or is it more actually the medical side of things?
No, I thought we've been through so much rare stuff, both of us, and I just thought there's no reason for us to continue to experience really rare, kind of semi-bad diagnoses.
When you've been through hell, you have to walk in a room and everybody, like, you're constantly like, oh, there's that Dr. Long, don't you know his wife died of a brain aneurysm? Like, that's being spoken, whispered in parties, for a long time.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people out there that look at that story and think, well, that didn't happen to me.
Even
which is exactly
feel that way.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Right.
I don't know. It just seems like the more aware that I get, the more not scripted that things are. Not just bad, but good stuff too. But you just don't go through life thinking bad stuff's going to happen to you. But the truth is, it does.
And all the time.
All the time.
I mean, it's sprinkled in with all the beautiful good.
Right.
I think that you're right. I think I felt the same way, like a shock and disbelief, because our love is so powerful that, I mean, there is almost in my psyche, like, we deserve to be happy. I have a ferocity of our love that makes me feel that anyone who wants to stand in the way or judge us, it makes me furious. And I think that's my inner child demanding this peace, this truth, I don't know, like, it feels like Middle Ages. Like, I would fight hard for our love because it is so pure and feels so right in my heart, mind, and body. And so when things do go wrong, I feel like all is not well with the world, or like, and that's not really the way things work. As grievers, we will forever be grievers.
Well, I think the mistake is thinking that there's a right and a wrong. That's the problem.
Yeah, you're right. I mean,
it's just
this a lot as an atheist.
It's just the reality, right? So we think of a complication or a difficulty as wrong. But the truth is, it's just that's the way life is. That's the way life works. There's always something. And we can label it right or wrong, or we can just accept that it is. It's neither right nor wrong. It just is.
I think we're experienced widows, and I think that we're unafraid to dive into the topics of widowdom that make us unique. And when we look at it, we believe that this is, that is the pinnacle. Like, I remember when pandemic hit after Carl died, my business closed, my business partnership and I, were in this major scuffle over money, and just like a kindergartner or first grade, maybe. I can't remember what grade Kate was. It's something very young. And then both online school at home. I took all these clients online. Money stopped coming in. And I was like, oh my God, literally Carl just died. I'm sure you felt the same way. I didn't think the world could get any worse. I thought that was the lowest of the low of the low of the low. And then we had a global pandemic. And I was like, is everything all right? I was kind of thinking the world wasn't right. Why was this happening to me?
Mm-hmm.
It's a common feeling as a widow. Why me? Why me? Why me? Why me? Why my body? Not why would my body do this to me? I might have caused a lot of these issues, and we'll never know, right? This is an unresearched opinion, and let me be very clear. This is a non-medical researched opinion of mine. And my doctor kind of, agreed with it. When we pulled the Marine out, she had suggested we not get pregnant for 90 days, and we got pregnant in the first 2 weeks. If you know much about the Marina, basically the way it works is you have a thinner endometrial lining, right? So your endometrium gets very thin, and it makes it nearly impossible for you to get pregnant. Now, there are the rare cases where you do get pregnant on the Marina. So we had just pulled mine out, and I had had back-to-back Marinas for years. And so there is advice to not get pregnant on the Marina right away. That's one of their selling points, though, is you're fertile right away. So you are fertile right away. Under discussed is, should you get pregnant right away? Is that the healthiest space for the baby to implant? So when implantation happened, I probably had a very thin endometrial lining. Mm-hmm. And I would say that my body, if I know my body, and I'm saying this in maybe the fictitious story I've carried my whole life, as we discussed, but I think we implanted in a maybe not the strongest endometrial lining, and therefore the subchorionic bleed, and therefore the placenta previa, and therefore we had placental issues the entire time. And then a placenta accreta popped up in the delivery room. So here we are, baby's out. She's perfect. My biggest fear, my doctor asked me, what is your biggest fear? Why are you so worried about having a C-section? And I was petrified of losing my birth plan. I wanted to nurse Genevieve, and I wanted to make sure that she stayed with me as much as possible, as long as her APGAR score and her health was okay. I wanted her to be on my skin with me and establish, I may be obsessing over this, but establish the most healthy security that I could for her. I want her attachment to be secure. I am determined to have a secure attached baby, and I'm working very overpowered amounts of energy to make sure that happens more than anything that I do in this time. So there we are. Baby comes out. Lionel Richie, literally, I can't even make this up. David's best friend and him have this hilarious song, and it's so precious. We were in the Bahamas the week of our wedding, and these two have been best friends for a very long time. And their masculinity is incredible, right?
Endless love.
Yeah, endless love. It's Endless Love by Lionel Richie. Their masculinity is so special. They're able to cry with each other. They're so deep, but they're both love to hunt and fish, and they're both very masculine men. But they have this softness about them, and Jared's wife, Katie, and I are very close, and just really amazing friendship all the way around for us as a couple. And we went out on the deck. We're making them, we're getting a glass of wine for everyone or whatever. We went inside, we're chatting, got caught up in girl talk, and then came back outside. And these two have their arms around each other in the Adirondack chairs at the beach, looking at the ocean. Endless Love is on. They're singing, kind of looked like they might have been crying. I'm not sure. We've embellished the story to be them holding hands and crying, and we were just dying laughing at how powerful and beautiful this masculine friendship could be, that they just let themselves feel all the spectrum of emotions.
It's kind of a joke, but it's not really a joke.
It's not really a joke, but it was hysterical. So then we started laughing at them. Anyway, long story short, our baby Genevieve literally popped out with Endless Love on. And I was thinking in my head, like, oh my God, it's Jared and David's song. And then I was also regretting, sort of like second guessing my Lionel Richie choices, because that song is super cheesy, in a good way. I wanted so bad to have a vaginal delivery. I wanted David to experience that. He had never experienced that on a personal level. Clearly had delivered many babies, but I did everything to try to turn that baby. I mean, I went to the chiropractor. I did some crazy shit to try to turn the baby. Down dogging, inversions. Like, I mean, I did everything. And then there was an interesting surrendering. My doctor was not a fan of this, but she was like, we can actually turn the baby. So they actually can turn the baby. But you go, you don't go under anesthesia, but you go into the hospital, get on the monitor, and they manually turn the baby. When I got into the ins and outs of this, I realized how painful it was. And I'd already been through the ablation, and we'd been through a lot. I was like, no, I'm done. Something post losing Carl and all of that medical trauma I've been through, I really struggle with physical pain. I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to be in medical pain in any sort of way. Like, it's like I want to run away from it all. I'm just going to have the C-section. And there's a reason. There's a reason. The wisdom of my baby and my body know that they want to be higher up and laying long ways. And sure enough, that wisdom probably really did save my life. Had we gone into a vaginal delivery, I would have been in real trouble. One of the things is when you sit in the chair of lost your partner, you will pine, maybe forever, the rest of my life, I'll pine about the pain he felt upon the end of his life. And like, could I have done a better job to reduce that pain? Did he know he was dying in that moment? What was going through their mind when they were dying? I think we think that a lot. Like, were they okay on the transition from life to not life? We could get religious here. People love to throw in all these non-absolutes and tell you like God was with them. And at least for me, I'm going to say, like, I've done the God route with it. It doesn't really settle that anxiety I feel deep inside. So, and I know it doesn't for David. I was blissfully unaware that I was even in trouble. I mean, I knew I was in trouble when she said we had an accreta, because clinically speaking, I know that that's dangerous. I knew it was taking a really long time. I didn't really know I was in trouble. I actually now believe in that moment, because I was definitely in a shock state. I think you're blissfully unaware when you die. Are you going to be able to talk about this?
Yeah, I was really scared.
All I can say is that, per usual, David and Genevieve kept me alive. So I was losing a lot of blood. I'm going to help David through this little moment, and then he'll probably have lots to say, I'm sure. But I was losing a lot of blood. So blessed. My doctor is such a badass. Like, she knew, and she basically looked over the sheet at me and was like, this is a placenta accreta. We have to move fast. Basically saying, like, I can try to save your uterus. It's fatal and it's dangerous, and it's a risk that she was thinking was not worth it, that it would put my life at risk. And I don't know, an eerie calm came over me, for the person that sits on this show and has talked more about my uterus and getting pregnant and like the womb space. And I'm such a woo-woo about like, this is a powerful source of energy that comes and makes me female. And in my familial line, it defines a lot of who I am, and it has for most of the women in my family. And it's taken me a lot of peeling out of survival skills and God, like all of this inner childhood trauma to peel back and realize that my truest strength and my defining qualities make me a mother, and that being a mother is what I was born to be, and that all the rest of the things that I am, and I'm much more than just a mother, but that being a mother is something that I'm proud of and I should claim more, and I shouldn't be ashamed to want to choose that as my number one career. that I actually want to sit in this mothering seat and mother every child in this home and love them to the best of my ability, and that I'm a good mom. And that should be celebrated. And yet having my ability to be a mom was lost like that. And in that moment, I actually was like, I was thinking of Car and Kate, and I was thinking of Kate, Jack, and Trig. And I was looking at David, and he was holding Genevieve. And God, I can't even tell you, like, it took a long time to have a hysterectomy abdominally on the table. Every 5 minutes, David brought the baby and put the baby's face on my face, and it made me cry. Aftermath. That was the only thing I wanted in my birth story. Like, I wanted my birth plan to have skin to skin. And there he was, and David was saying what appeared to be relatively calm and brought me the baby every 5 minutes. And every time he brought me the baby, it brought me back out of like what I imagine or I'm assuming was a shock state. So I would be like, I'm so tired. I just needed to take a nap. Like, I was ready to go to sleep. And the doctor was giving me a lot of different medicine. I know that. She was like, I'm going to give you a little of this. And she was kind of trying to tell me, but not really tell me. We had an amazing anesthesiologist.
Yeah,
and the minute that I decided, I was like thinking about Kate and my whole family. Like, I was thinking about my whole family. Like, if I died and left him holding this baby and left my children and left your children and our children, I now call them. I'm like a little bit done saying your children, my children, our children. The impact of that and the world view that they would have, that like would be so challenging. And so I was like, yeah, take the uterus. I don't care. I do not care. And my choice again to live. And I've had this choice a few times. You know, when you lose your spouse, you have to choose to live. You have to choose to love again. And I feel like when I reached my hands, like in a metaphorical way to you, against a lot of people were not supportive or maybe just didn't like the change that was happening in me. And I felt like I had to jump into your arms and get out of my old life or out of my old skin and out of my old way to be free. And I wasn't going to compromise that choice.
If you enjoyed this episode of Wake the F Up, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Join the Wake community by downloading our app. Just search for The Wake Wellness in the Apple or Android App Store. And follow us on Instagram at The Wake Wellness. Thanks for listening.